Welcome to Discover Christian Church. Our mission is to love God, love people, and impact the world.
I hope everyone's enjoying the beautiful weather on this nice Palm Sunday, especially after whatever happened yesterday with that snow. I don't understand, but Ohio, we're doing great things here. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Tyler, and I am the student minister here at Discover. If I don't know you, I would love to get a cup of coffee with you sometime because, well, I love coffee, and also it'd be cool to get to know you guys, but also coffee. And today, we are going to be in our second week of our Go Beyond series. And I have a question for all of you. I didn't ask this first service, ad-libbing a little bit here. Does the song for the bumper remind anyone else of Christmas time, or is it just me that feels like it's a very Christmas-themed song? Completely unrelated, but I just thought of that, and I just had to ask. But anyway, we're in the second week of our series, Go Beyond, where we are talking about our vision statement here at Discover, as well as our core values, and then also our Go Beyond Stewardship campaign. Now, last week, Steve kicked us off talking about our core value of generosity and the first part of our vision statement, which is reach, or reaching into the community. And this week, we get to talk about the core value of love and the second step of our vision statement, which also happens to be love. So it's super nice how that worked out for me. Now, if any of you remember one of the last times I was up here, I also got to talk about love. So I either did way too good and no one else on staff ever wants to talk about it, or I did really bad and I need a chance at redemption. I'm gonna let you all be the judge of that. I can't tell you, but it is what it is. This is where we are. Before we get too far in today, though, I do want to read a little bit of what Discover defines love as our core value and also our vision statement. That way we can all be on the same page here. Because love is one of those things, you ask 10 different people, you get 11 different answers. So, just to make sure we are kind of on the same page, we're going to start with what our core value of love says. And it says, we believe authentic love is expressed in the life-giving tension of unconditional grace and uncompromising truth, which was best modeled by Jesus. And then the first part of our vision statement, which includes reach from last week, because they're not separate individual things, they're all related and they build upon one another. So we're going to keep that in there and add the love part. It says, we are a church that reaches intentionally into the local and global community, developing authentic relationships. And we're a church that loves people wherever they are, especially in their brokenness and messiness, but loves them too much to stay there. Now, I don't want to brag on myself or act like I'm super smart or anything, because I definitely got this from somebody else. I just honestly can't remember who or where it came from. But a lot of my students that were at CIY last summer heard me say this in one of our conversations, and it just really has stuck with me because I'm kind of a nerd and I like math. But it's this really simple, basic equation that just says love equals grace plus truth. Again, love is grace and truth together, like our core value says. And again, that just stuck with me and really stood out because it seems really simple. It's not. It's a lot more difficult than that. But when you break it down, that is the core of what it is, because you need both of them to really be loving. If you lean too far one way or the other, which we can often tend to do, we end up not truly being loving. Like if you have a friend who struggles with alcoholism and all you do is show them grace and just keep telling them, it's okay, we love you, it's fine, you're going to get through that, it's not going to do them a whole lot of good. It's important to show them that. But if you never point out why what they're doing is hurting them or not great for them, they're never really going to grow. On the flip side of that, if all you do is tell them they suck and they're an idiot and they really need to cut that out and they need to get their act together, you're also probably not really showing them love. They probably don't want to listen to you. In math, in addition, the commutative rule says it doesn't matter which order the two numbers you're adding together go in. When it comes to love, I would argue that the order really does matter. It is really important to start with grace, to lead with grace. Grace plus truth, not necessarily truth plus grace. Because sometimes you have to start with one and they can't be together. Now, again, doesn't mean we're compromising the truth, but we want to make sure we build that relationship and, in essence, earn the right to speak into somebody's life. Earn the ability for them to trust us, what we have to say, so they're willing to listen and know that we care about them and want what's best for them, and we're not just trying to prove how smart we are or that we know better than them. And like it says in our core value, there's a tension here. Jesus modeled it incredibly. We don't always model it the best because it's really, really tough, but that's what life is. Life is tough. It's not always easy like we would like it to be, but we got to figure it out. Now that we have all arrived kind of on the same page, I have a short little story that I would like to tell you guys. The story begins with the crown prince of an African empire who is forced to run away from home after his father is assassinated by his uncle, and then the prince is framed for it. And while the prince is in exile, he meets these two outcasts or wanderers who are just kind of off doing their own thing, living life the way that they want to. And despite the fact that these three are like nothing alike at all, they don't have like anything in common, they become the best of friends. And for anyone that hasn't like caught on or figured it out yet, I'm definitely talking about the Lion King and the amazing friendship of Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa. These three are such a weird, unique group of people. They are like the quintessential unlikely friends, but they become the best of friends. And it's not just the Lion King that does this. We see this in all kinds of movies. If you look at the original Star Wars trilogy, you have a farm boy, a smuggler, and a princess who all come together and be friends, and they save the galaxy. It's all over books, TV shows, and movies. And we love it in there because it's amazing watching these people that they don't have anything really in common that we can see come together and do something great. But how often does that carry over into our own lives? How often are we making the unlikely friends? How often are we hanging out with or talking to people that we wouldn't necessarily be expected to? How often are we putting in that effort to overcome some of these barriers? See, there wasn't anything easy, really, about being friends with someone who might actually eat you. Lions do eat warthogs, okay? It happens sometimes, so there was danger there. Someone could get hurt, but they didn't care. They wanted to love on each other. Often, our friends are easy friends to have, and there's nothing wrong with that. The people close to us we should be caring about and loving on. But we should also be paying attention to the people on the fringes, the people that, maybe they're at the coffee shop every time we go there. Maybe we see them at the grocery store all the time, but we don't ever stop and take a second to talk to them, to show them that we love them or that we care about them. This idea was best modeled by Jesus. And it wasn't just once in his life and in his ministry, it happens frequently. Right now, I'm going to have two of our student leaders come up, and they're going to read from Luke chapter 19, just one of these stories. So if you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and turn there to follow along.
Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus, and he called him by name. "Zacchaeus," he said, "quick, come down. I must be a guest in your house today."
Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner. They grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor, Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much. Jesus responded, Salvation has come to this house today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Can we give them a round of applause? They did great. Now, if you guys grew up in the church or went to Sunday school ever, you've probably heard the story of Zacchaeus. It's a pretty common one for us to talk about in Sunday school. And if that is you, awesome. If this is literally the first time you've ever heard of Zacchaeus, that's also awesome. There's a lot more to the story than what we talk about normally, so we're all going to be hopefully diving in a little deeper, learning some new things today. I would also like to take this moment to point out, when we were talking about this story in our teaching team meeting, and I was going over my general idea for it, the first thing Dane said, he just looked at me and goes, I'm not climbing a tree. So, clearly he doesn't love you all enough. Take that up with him, okay? Maybe the rest of this message is solely for him because, he needs to love you guys better or something. I don't know. Anyway, this story begins with Jesus walking through Jericho on his way to Jerusalem. He's on his way to Jerusalem for the start of what we now know as Holy Week, which starts today on Palm Sunday, and for his triumphant entry into the city of Jerusalem, where they praise him, and then we'll very quickly turn to him being betrayed, crucified. But spoilers for next week, he doesn't stay in the grave, so we're all good. Jesus, he's walking through, and there's this man, Zacchaeus, and we read that he's a chief tax collector, and he's pretty wealthy, he's rich, he's well off, he's fine, he's doing good money-wise. But there's something about Jesus. He just feels this magnetic pull, or this a force of attraction. He's like, I need to see this guy. I just need to see what he's about. I need to actually go and look at him. Unfortunately for Zacchaeus, he's not the only one that felt this. There was a huge crowd around Jesus, and because Zacchaeus was short, he didn't get to see him. So he runs ahead and climbs up a tree, which isn't a normal thing, even for back then, all right? Just imagine you're walking down the street and there's some dude wearing a suit climbing up a tree. It's kind of what it would look like. It's a really weird thing, but it's what he did because for him, it was just so important that he got to see Jesus. And Jesus is walking by and he stops. He looks right at Zacchaeus and he calls him down out of the tree. And in this moment, a lot of the Jewish people there were probably thinking, oh boy, this is going to be really awesome. Jesus is about to tear him apart. He is a horrible human. He is a tax collector. He sucks. We hate him. Jesus is about to hate on him too. It's going to be great. He's going to flip through his Bible, find all the best verses. That way he can make him feel like a horrible human or less than human, make sure he knows he's a sinner. That's not what Jesus does. Jesus looks at him. He's like, hey, come down here now. I need to go to your house tonight. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a meal together. Meals were super, super important things back then. You didn't eat with people who you weren't willing to associate with, but Jesus was willing to associate with Zacchaeus, a tax collector, when no one else was. And this is a moment where a little bit of context goes a long way with the Bible, because we read tax collector and we might think okay, so he's basically just an IRS agent or something like that. And while a lot of us don't necessarily have fond feelings about the IRS at this moment in time, with it being tax season and all, it's a very different thing. While the core premise of a tax collector is simple, collect taxes for Rome, give them to Rome. Simple enough. But what it ended up turning into oftentimes were basically government or state-sponsored extortionists. See, they had the protection and the help of Roman soldiers often, so they would go to people's houses and be like, all right, this dude owes $15 in taxes. I'm going to take 20 from him and pocket the 5 that he doesn't actually need to pay and just give the rest to Rome. So people didn't like them because of that, but when there are Roman soldiers on their side who are professionally trained killers, It's really hard to make an argument or a case against them that's going to end well for you. On top of that, in the case of Zacchaeus, he was a Jewish man who sold himself out or became a traitor because he was willing to work for Rome. Along with tax collectors being hated, Rome was very hated by the Jewish people, but they kind of accepted the fact that they were in charge because, Rome had this giant, powerful army, and they did not. They did not have that army, so they decided, you know what, it's fine, we'll live with it, but we really don't like it. Tax collectors, they just weren't loved. People didn't like them. They thought of them as traitors, dirtbags, horrible people. In his book, People to Be Loved, Preston Sprinkle says it this way. Moreover, tax collectors had a reputation for living excessively immoral lives. Religious Jews considered them to be worse than thieves and murderers, on par with dung collectors. Yes, dung collectors. And they were thought to be past the point of repentance. If God's grace had a leash, it stopped short of reaching tax collectors, according to Jewish tradition. And he continues on to give us a modern-day example of the way people would feel about a tax collector. And he puts it this way, I've paraphrased it a little bit, but he basically says, a modern-day example might be a human trafficker who's also a drug dealer and funnels all of his profits to support terrorism around the world. Now, that's not what tax collectors actually did. I mean, they probably thought of Rome as terrorists. They didn't really like them. But I don't want the shock value that might have to, distract you from what it's really trying to say. The way Jewish people felt about tax collectors is how you guys, including myself, would probably feel about that person. We would fundamentally disagree with every life choice that person has made. We wouldn't really want to be friends with them. We would probably disapprove of everything they do. I hope we disapprove of everything that person does. But that feeling there, that's what the tax collectors had, not our, crap, got to do my taxes feeling. Now, Jesus comes into contact with this person. And I don't know how you guys would respond, but Jesus responds very differently than anyone expected him to. He shows Zacchaeus grace. He shows him love. He talks to him like a normal human, and he treats him like a normal human. If we go back to that equation, love equals grace plus truth, Jesus starts with grace. He leads with grace, knowing that that's what Zacchaeus needs to feel in that moment in order for later Jesus to be able to add the truth to it. Jesus wants to love on this man that most people hated and wanted nothing to do with. You see, it doesn't really matter how hard we try to love people or how hard we try to reach out into the community or do all these things. If we're missing grace and truth, we're not really loving them, and whatever we're doing doesn't matter. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 3, Paul reminds us of just the fact that love is of the utmost importance and should be a part of our lives all the time. He says it this way: if I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. If we aren't showing love and grace to the people around us, then what are we doing? It's nothing. It doesn't matter. We need to follow Jesus' example of loving people and loving people with that grace. But that's only the first half of our equation or the first half of the story. At no point in this story or any of Jesus' other interactions with sinners or people that society deemed sinners or horrible people does Jesus ever say, no, you're doing fine. You're doing great. Keep on doing what you're doing. He never compromises on the truth. In fact, he often says things along the lines of, go and leave your life of sin, or go and sin no more. He shows them this love and this grace, but then he reminds them, like, hey, what you're doing, it's not okay. We need to try to work better. You need to be following God's will for your life, not your own will. This isn't the only time Jesus has had this interaction with a tax collector. There's a really famous example from pretty early on in Jesus' ministry, a guy named Levi, better known as Matthew, the gospel writer. He's another tax collector that Jesus calls out of his life of sin and into following him and to following God. And you never really know what the effect of these small little acts of love and kindness to somebody might be. In the case of Zacchaeus, he repents. We read Jesus says that salvation has come to that household because Zacchaeus realized, hey, I've messed up. I've done some really bad things. I've cheated people out of money. But I'm willing to give up half of everything I own at least. And anyone that I've cheated, give them 4 times as much as I took from them. I just want to make things right with these people. Unfortunately, not everybody we interact with is going to have like that immediate of a flip or that drastic of a flip, but also we're not Jesus, so that's okay. Because some of us, we might just be planting seeds. Some of us, we might be watering the seeds. Others, we might finally get to be the one that harvests the seeds. You never really know where in that process you are or what your simple acts of love and kindness and showing people this grace will do. It can have a huge effect that can last generations. We're going to go ahead and watch a short video interview right now with Mike Feeney and Steve that talks a little bit more about this point.
All right, Mike, hey, thanks for coming in and just sharing a little bit about your story. I guess we were talking, we've known each other since 1994, I'm old, dude. But, so how did you end up coming to Discover? Who got you connected?
So my buddy Tae-Woo Kim was a good friend of mine. We wrestled in middle school together. Mm-hmm. He invited me to the youth group. They were having a special thing at Pizza Hut. And that's what it was. It was Pizza Hut. We just literally ate pizza and stuff and with the group. And
how did that, how was that a catalyst for your spiritual life and where you are now?
Oh, well, I enjoyed the friendships and the community part of it and stuff, and it really was like a second family, mm-hmm. like a home. And I've always liked big families and stuff and so forth. So and then so I started coming to the youth group, and then one day they asked me if I wanted to come to church, and I remember I got there early, and none of the youth group people were there because everybody got there late and stuff, and I felt kind of out of place and stuff. But then I saw friends from my old neighborhood that I hadn't seen in a long time, Bobby Dabber and a few other people and stuff, and then when everybody showed up, it was a good time, and it just kind of spiritually wise, it's just little things just kept connecting me with my faith and stuff. I remember being at a Bible study youth group thing. It was at somebody's house, and I remember I was sitting underneath the table because there were so many people there, and there wasn't enough rooms to sit and stuff. And I remember Tony Trapp was talking about that Lee Strobel book, The Case for Christ, and stuff. And so things were coming along, so I felt connected, family and community-wise. And then I was getting evidences too and stuff, and I didn't know there was so much evidence for Christianity.
So there were people, it sounds like, there were people inviting you to youth group, there were people inviting you to a small group context, there were people investing in your life, saying, Mike, what do you think about Jesus, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So when did you make the decision to follow Jesus?
I don't remember exactly when it was. I kept seeing friends get baptized and stuff, mm-hmm. and then I figured I should probably get baptized, and I remember talking to you and Tony about it and stuff, and they said it's, the important part is accepting Jesus and, repenting and so forth. But he said it's also something that Jesus says to do in the Bible. He says, hey, you're supposed to be baptized. So it seems pretty important. Yeah.
So you were baptized. Were you baptized right here?
Yep, I was. In the wintertime. When it wasn't working.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so it was nice and warm, right? It was about 4 degrees.
And Tay had shaved his head the night before, so he wore a hat. So
he's a beautiful man when you got that going on. So wow, that's cool. And now one of the things that's really neat for me, Mike, is having known you for again many years. seeing your family and them growing up and seeing the influence that you and Ashley, the discipleship that you guys have poured into your own kids, and how that's producing fruit in their lives, but now it's actually producing fruit beyond them, and they're doing the same kind of things that got you connected to Jesus. So actually, we're going to hear a little about that right now. So again, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
All right, well, everybody, I would like to introduce you to two of our students and two of my friends. We have Kylie and Sammy. And Kylie, that was your dad we just got to hear from, so that's pretty cool. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
I'm a sophomore at Dublin Kaufman High School, and I've been coming to Discover with my family since like about first grade, and I've been baptized here.
And then what is your favorite thing about Discover, or 121, both of them?
This is not my question, man.
No, it wasn't. I'm throwing you a curveball on the spot.
My favorite thing about Discover is like when we first came here when I was younger, I was like super shy. So I wouldn't talk to anyone. Like I used to cry every Sunday before church. And then when we came here, like all the staff and everyone was like genuinely excited to meet my whole family and like made us feel welcome every week.
All right, awesome.
Okay, this is Sammy. Tell us about yourself, Sammy.
All right, I'm Sammy. I'm also a sophomore at Kaufman. I've been coming here for like a year and a half or so, and I also got baptized here.
What's your favorite thing about Discover?
My favorite thing about Discover is probably just the group of people, the community that we have here. I mean, everyone's so welcoming and nice, and you just feel like really in place when you first come in.
How did you end up at Discover?
So the lovely Kylie Feeney here, me and her went to middle school together, and we had a Spanish class. And we ended up being like neighbors, and we started getting closer and closer. And then she started pestering me to come to youth group. And she was like, "It's so good, Sammy. You've got to come. You've got to come. You've got to come." So I started coming to like literal, like just playing 9 square, like Christmas parties. And then she kept dragging me. And then I eventually started going with her family to church. And now I come every Sunday.
What made you feel connected here and want to stay here?
The relationships that I built, especially with like the youth leaders. I mean, once you go into the little life groups that you have during youth group, you just build these great relationships, and everyone's so supportive and kind, and it just makes you want to keep coming back and see your friends.
What's your favorite thing about 121?
Favorite thing about 121 is definitely the people. I mean, you walk in the room and everyone's just already smiling, and everyone is hilarious there. And no matter like who you are, everyone just walks up and is like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you just build relationships on the spot.
And so almost a year ago now, you decided to get baptized, Sammy. So can you just tell us a little bit about that decision, kind of what led to that?
I was sitting like right over there where my family's actually sitting right now. And I was like sitting there, and I had been wanting to get baptized into the church because I was baptized when I was a baby, but I wanted to make sure that it was my decision. And I was sitting there, and Jim was the one preaching. And I remember like him being like, "If anyone wants to get baptized, come on up." And I remember like looking at my mom, and I was like, "Hey." And then I also looked at Kylie, who was sitting by us, and I was like, "Do you have any plans after church?" As if that was going to change anything. And then I ended up walking up to Jim, like right up there during like the music, and I was like, "I want to get baptized."
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being up here and willing to do this. Can we give them a round of applause, please? I will say I'm like not as upset with Sammy as I first was when she got baptized, because like she decided to do that when me and Lizzie were on vacation, so we weren't able to see it happen. But you know, it is what it is. Preston sent us a video, so we got to watch it. It was a good time, and we were super happy for her. But in both Mike and Sammy's stories, we see a friend that they knew cared about them, reaching out to them and inviting them here, even if it was originally to Pizza Hut or a Christmas party or any of these events. And that's very similar to how I ended up at Discover. It's just over 10 years ago now. I was in high school, and a couple friends of mine, they invited me. They're like, "Hey, you should come. This is a lot of fun." And I remember thinking like, well, I don't really care about the whole God, Jesus thing. Like, that's kind of whatever. But these people are pretty cool, and they're nice to me. So, like, sure, I'll go and I'll hang out with them. And over time, I grew in my relationship with them and my relationship with God. And now I get to be up here talking to all of you guys. So we can't really underestimate the power of some of these small things. And one of the really cool things about, hearing from Mike and then hearing from Kylie and Sammy is when you just stop and think about it, like, if Mike's friend never invited him to church, him and his family wouldn't be here, which means Kylie wouldn't be here, which means Sammy wouldn't be here. There's a whole chain of events that happen and unfold because one person decided to show love and be kind to someone else and be like, hey, you should come to church. It'll be a lot of fun. Last week, I attended a conference virtually because 2022 is still real weird, and I did not have any desire to fly or drive to Boise, Idaho. It just really didn't sound like fun to me, so the virtual option will do. And one of the speakers at this conference, he used this quote from D.T. Niles, and I think it really sums up the idea of what we're talking about this morning and what we should all be about. And it just simply says, Christianity is one beggar telling another beggar where they found bread. It's as simple as that. Christianity is one beggar, one sinner, one person that tried to run away from God, someone that fell short of the glory of God, but has found him, his grace, his love, his mercy, this endless source of bread. And now we should be wanting to share it with other people. You see, God loves all of us. He sent his son to die for us, and there's enough bread for everyone. So why would we keep this to ourselves? Why would we not want everyone else to know this? There's no one that's beyond the grace of God. There's no one that has run away or gotten far enough away as the Jewish people thought tax collectors had. Like our core value says, it's unconditional grace. There's nothing that holds it back. God's love is so wide and so unfathomable to us. It encompasses every single person. So we shouldn't be holding back from loving the unlikely friend, the person on the fringes of our lives that we think we have nothing in common with. Or on the surface, we don't see what we have in common. But when you dig deep down inside, we all have similarities and things in common with people. And our true desire is for more people, students, kids, adults, everybody, to come to know Jesus more. And that's the whole idea behind the Go Beyond Stewardship campaign that we have. We're trying to help our people, so everyone here, raise their faith, be more like Jesus, because that is the goal. We all want to be more like Jesus, and we want to love people more. And one of the ways that we really, really want to do that involves some updates to our building, because we want to have really effective places for us to be able to do cool things for the community, like have people come for a cooking class or an ESL class, places for people in the community that aren't necessarily connected to us, where they can come and feel loved and cared about. And we can make that connection by doing something as simple as, showing them how to cook something, helping them learn how to speak English better. Or one of the things that I'm really excited about with the new student center that we're hoping to reconfigure to is having an awesome spot for students a day or two a week after school to come hang out with the leaders or adults that care about them, maybe do their homework, get a little bit of help, maybe some tutoring, or just spend time with people that they know care about them. We want to provide these places because it's those relationships that make a big difference. It's that connection, that love that people feel. And a prayer we have been saying with the Stewardship campaign is this: God, what are you asking of me so that you can accomplish your will in the church that I love? And like the D.T. Niles quote and the love equals grace plus truth, it's simple, but it gets to the heart of it. Like, God, what are you asking me to do? What is it that I need to be doing so that you can accomplish your will? Because that's the end goal. God, we want your will to be accomplished, not mine. That's where Zacchaeus got to. And in doing so, who is it in our lives that are unlikely friends or honestly even difficult friends? Because going back to the Lion King, there's nothing convenient about being friends with another animal that very well might eat you if they got hungry enough. There's nothing convenient about making friends with the dude who's up in a tree that everyone else hates. There's nothing easy about that, but there's something amazing and rewarding about it. You guys could help each other grow to become the best versions of yourself. You might find your best friend that you thought you had nothing in common with because you invited them to come to a pizza party or to hang out and just play games, to just be in community with you. And so I want to take this prayer and make a slight change to it. And I want us to be remembering this, and I want you guys to try and be praying this throughout the week. And again, it's super simple, but I just want to tweak it to say, God, who are you asking me to go beyond and to love so that you can accomplish your will in the church that I love? Heavenly Father, we are so incredibly thankful for your endless love and grace for us, that we get to come here and be in community with each other, to worship you, to give you thanks for your Son and the sacrifice that he made for us. And God, I want to pray that as we head out from here, we head into our communities, and we see the people around us, we live like Jesus. We are on the lookout for those people on the fringes of our lives, those people that would be these unintentional friends, people we need to put effort into loving. Because God, that's what you have called us to do, and that's what you did for us. I pray that in all these things we do, we keep our focus on you and remember why it is that we're doing this. And it's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.